What's up, guys? Pittsburgh Weiss Schwarz back again with yet another deck tech. I'm coming at you today with my Weiss Schwarz Invitationals list. I wanted to go over it again, Love Life Sunshine, even though I already have a deck tech up on this channel it was one of our first deck techs of a Love Life Sunshine list that was from our shop challenge. Just getting into, before I get into the actual cards, why I decided to bring this deck to the Weiss Schwarz Invitational. If you guys didn't already know, I was invited. I've played in a couple of games so far. As of right now, I'm still in the event. Knock on wood. We will see where that goes. So why I decided to bring Love Live Sunshine. Love Live Sunshine was the deck that I was playing competitively for the most recent singles tournament season. Brought it to events. I was grinding it with my locals, just being ready to participate at higher levels of the game. It was the list I was most comfortable with, and with some of the not issues, but rather just sort of how playing on webcam goes, and you can't track things as intensely, and you have to sort of ask for stuff. I wanted to play something that cared a little less about what it was playing into and sort of executed a very consistent, very high power strategy. And like Chica Yo is just one of the most broken things you can be doing in the game in general. So I just wanted to bring something that was more on the simple side, more aggressive, less susceptible to counterplay outside of obvious stuff like anti-change counter and any deck can be susceptible to. And I was more than comfortable with the list. So that's the big reason I decided to play it. So I'm just going to jump right into the cards. Uniquely to my list, as opposed to Connor and Patrick, who are the other two Love Live Sunshine players in the tournament, I'm the only one running the Yoshiko anti-runner. I'm a really big believer in this card. I think especially in a meta where Goblin Slayer exists, this card just gets even better. It's a 3500 anti-runner. You can't play backups, so you can't field it as a shitter late game because you want to be threatening Ruby backup. However, the card is just extremely good at answering basically anything in the zero game. A lot of things are running runners. Again, this outs Chaser, as long as Chaser doesn't have any back row power. But even if it does, you have the Yoshiko runner, which we're also running at 3. So we're running a 3-3 split, so you have 6 field plusing zeros. Because we can give 500 power to our Yoshiko oversize to make sure that we even hit over other oversized things like Shisatos, things at 3500, go to level 1, Futaba profiles. The Yoshiko oversize is just one of the best zeros in the set. However, I do understand the merit of running just the 4 runners. You just want to make sure you get your turn 0 plus going first, especially the fact that it opens up your zero lineup if you're not playing a lot of zeros. I play 16, which is not common. Most Sunshine lists run somewhere between 13 and 15, 15 being abnormal, 16 being like absurd, just because of the Yo stuff. And I'll get into that when I get into Yo. I just wanted to make sure I had a really good field plusing zero lineup, and 3-3 split has felt really good ever since I started playing the deck. So that's it for that. Moving on, so I run the Hanamara Brainstormer. This is also unique to me. I believe Connor is also running the Rico Brainstormer. Patrick always running the Rico Brainstormer. I personally don't think, even with a high zero count, you can reliably tap down 2 characters in the back row with Sunshine, and especially has natural anti-synergy with Rico. Sometimes you do want to brainstorm, and the yellow isn't as much of a drawback as you think. You pretty much only, since I started playing this deck, you only really want to salvage yellow cards. All your yellow cards are mostly your tech cards. You only have one big tech card at the top that's red, in which case you'll probably take that and hold it on a triggered gate if it's something that you know that you're going to need, or you can drop search it. I'm also running 2 drop searchers. A big reason I am running 2 and not just 1 is that because of my 3 tech choices and because of what I thought people were going to be bringing, I honestly expected a lot more Fate and even more Goblin Slayer than we saw. I wanted to have instant access to things like Bouncer, things like Fumio if my opponent was in bad deck state. So I cut down on healer to run an additional Ruby drop search. I think that if I was going to make a change to the list, we didn't have the list when we were building and stuff like that. Based on the current field, 2 Ruby healers is probably at the top is probably correct, and only 1 drop searcher. But I just wanted to make sure that I had instant access to being teched out. And drop searcher is always good. I also really value the play where if you scry climaxes to the bottom in the mid game, you can play Ruby drop searcher, filter what you need, and then shuffle that cancel back up into your deck, taking a deck state that might be somewhat unfavorable into a favorable situation. That's a really fun play and really cool edge case play that only Sunshine can make because they have such good deck manipulation access to the top and bottom of their deck. Super unique to Love Live Sunshine in the English meta. Not a lot of decks can do that. Sunshine has unparalleled control of the top and bottom card of its deck. And the drop searcher helps you sort of reset and go from there as well. So a lot of extra utility. I really like that line of play, but again, in terms of now seeing the full field, 2 Ruby healers at the top, probably correct, probably only 1 of this. Moving on, lastly here at level 0, 3 Capture Stance Conan. This card's ridiculous. I'm going to link in the description Shizukatsu's video on Conan sequencing and all the crazy things you can do with this card. I don't want to waste time talking about it because we've talked about it in previous videos about Love Live Sunshine. When Love Live Sunshine comes up in our tier list discussions and stuff like that, we always talk about Conan. This is a big reason that Love Live Sunshine has such great control over the top and bottom card of this deck. And you can do things like play over, you get a double scry and stuff like that. Again, I will link that video in the description. The big other thing here, the Yo Bomb. The Yo Bomb is super common in every Love Live Sunshine list. This card is invaluable. The normal reverse bomb. However, when it hits Waiting Room, pay 2, salvage a card. Sunshine is a deck that needs its selectivity at any cost. That's why when people ask, why aren't you running the Ruby level 1? Why aren't you running the Dia level 1? Things like that, things that are more high roll. I am a huge proponent that Sunshine is a deck that needs selective pluses. You need to hit specific things very quickly. And sometimes you cannot rely on Azasing through your deck and finding what you want in those top 4 cards. You need the selectivity. Pay 2 when you need it is more than efficient enough to get you what you need and get you in the right spot to win the game. So yeah, really, really important card. If you don't need it and you don't need to do something like put Yo in stock, this is a great target to thin a 0 from your deck with Stock Soul, things like that. So just a really good, valuable card. The pay 2 plus is really, really important for the deck. Even though it is only a 2 of, this is an extremely important card for any Love Live Sunshine deck to be running. Moving into level 1s, as you've probably figured out by now, I'm running the Chica combo. It's a 104k bomb. When it gets a reverse, and of course it's a bomb, so it's going to reverse, it gets a selective plus from Waiting Room. So just gets you into your pieces. The stock charge is good. You can put Yo with the Stock Soul into your stock, and then as long as you have 2 Ricos, 1 to clock, 1 to play, you play the Chica, then you pay the 1, the Yo pops out, and then hits the field. Pretty classic Love Live Sunshine play for people who are playing Stock Soul. Just, again, the selectivity is so, so important. And if you hit level 1 first and you get to farm their zeros, the fact that you open up lanes going into your Yo turn, if you're on first deck, you're probably going to eat damage, maybe go to level 2. Just that case alone is also another reason to be running it, because then you open up lanes where you can't get any change countered. Our other card at level 1, probably one of the most important card in the deck, I think, outside of Chica and Yo themselves, is the Ruby Azusa. This is a normal on-play pitch a card, check top 4, add a music character. This card is so important. This is why the Hanamaru Brainstorm is not that bad, because most of the time you are grabbing Azusa, especially if you hit more than 1 Climax on Brainstorm, if you're brainstorming at all. You are always taking this card. This card is so important. This card gives you deck speed. This card gives you great deck manipulation. This card lets you reset for things like digging for triggers for Yo or stuff like that if you want to go again after checking a card that's not valuable and you want to move it or you want to grab it. Like, say you reveal a 0 on top, it's a Conan, you want it in your hand, you grab it with this, you set your card again, you go again, you check with Rico. The amount of things this card does for the deck outside of just the normal things an Azusa does, which is give you ridiculous deck manipulation, ridiculous first deck speed, lets you burn through your deck whenever you want, lets you set up optimal final deck counts, so like 4 if you're claiming Climax, stuff like that, or you can go all the way so that you don't leave a grave. If you're playing in things like Konosuba, you don't want to leave a grave for stuff like Fumio. Like, the utility of this card is just unparalleled in the deck. It does so much. It does more than even a normal Azusa, and the fact that it's a 104k just doesn't even matter. However, like I said, sometimes you are put in situations where you have to make the terrible choice, where you're sculpted for level 1, but your deck is bad, and you need to level yellow to make sure that you can burn through your deck. And I've been on both sides of that. Sometimes you make the gamble and you lose because you level red and you get your Chica combo off, and it's not good enough because then your deck is garbage. You eat garbage, and then your Yo doesn't burn, and then bad things happen. Or you can level yellow, burn through your deck, reset. Sunshine can do whatever it wants, and because it can create these level 2 damage pushes with Yo, sometimes going behind to set up optimal second deck states with the Ruby Azusa is correct, because as long as Yo is hitting some burns, generating extra attacks, you can catch up in the damage race just because Chica and Yo is so broken. But yeah, I'm done gushing about this card. This card is so important for the deck. You have to run 4 no matter what you're doing, even if you are running blue, which my deck notably is not. You definitely need to run 4 Azza in every Love Live Sunshine deck. It is too important. Moving on, level 2. This is the only level 2s I run in my deck. For Rico, obviously, it's every single Love Live Sunshine deck in English ever. You run 4 of this card. And then 2 Ruby backup. 2 Ruby backup, that card's really important. The threat of it with it in your hand, especially if even one is missing, even if you don't have it, it makes your opponent have to play around the possibility of having 5 cards ripped from their deck. So if they're going to attack into a new deck and have cards milled, that might be something that they try to play around. It's also just a 3k backup. Chica and Yo sit pretty big, so you're typically, with this card in hand, not worried about anything getting over you power-wise. You're more worried about something getting bombed or something like that removed off the field. So really important card for the deck, threatening that 3k power spike, as well as threatening to possibly brick your opponent's deck state. Ruby milling 4 or 5 is a coin flip, quote unquote. You don't know if it's going to remove climaxes. However, in certain situations, it might be able to ruin your opponent's selectivity off something like a top check X that triggers at the end of turn. It might be able to send your opponent into possibly worse compressed deck state if they have a climax out and they're trying to refresh with only 1 card left in their deck at the end of turn. You can put them over refresh, things like that. It has a lot of value. Lots of really cool plays you can make with the card. It's really important for you to be able to threaten this all the time. That's why we run 2. I don't really want to talk about Rico that much. Just the level assist, it has a broken effect where you tap it, pitch a card, and reveal the top card of your deck. The synergies with that in Love Live Sunshine are very obvious. It lets you obviously filter cards that you don't need out of your hand to grab other tech pieces as long as you reveal a level 1 or higher, which is a very high % chance, even with a high amount of zeros like I have in my deck. You can always grab Ruby Azza. It's a card you're always grabbing. So the utility of this card to check the top card of your deck, possibly go for additional scries. You can control the top card of your deck very well in Love Live Sunshine, as I said. You can probably get a costless drop salvage, as in stockless, to get whatever you want with this card. It's ridiculous. You run 4, especially because it's the clock condition. Moving into level 3s, the normal 3-4 split Chica Yo. I'm not going to talk about this that much. This is just broken. This is one of the best things that you can be doing in English in terms of level 2 play. The speed at which it accelerates the game, provided that Yo generates an extra attack in any form, whether it is a ping for 1 or even 2, or of course the nut where you reveal a 3 and you burn your opponent out and they die, is just ridiculous. 3-4 has always been the most consistent split. You only really hold 1 Chica, and then if you have 2, that's just the nut play. But even with only 3, it is very easy to do that if you want to. You have a lot of selective plus that you can get, even though your brainstorm doesn't grab red cards. You should have no problem getting 2 of these off if you are in a position to do so at level 2. That is rare, especially against good players who know when to push you and make sure that you're not generating that much advantage unless weird sack cancels on first deck are happening, which is usually the only time when double Chica Yo comes down at the first level 2 turn. But yeah, this is just one of the best things that you can be doing in the English metagame in terms of a level 2 game state acceleration play. The aggressive nature of this is just too much, and if English ever does get a restriction list, expect this to be at the top. Getting into other level 3s, I run 2 Musashi. I know that Patrick is not running any Musashi. I'm not sure if Connor is. I value this card just as a way to edge out games when my opponent is like 3-3-3-4, or is at a low deck with 1 or 2 climaxes in them. So like say 6 to 7 cards in deck, 1 to 2 climaxes. This is a good card to swing in an open lane, maybe clear the climax, get some a little bit of bonus damage, even if you only mill a 0, which is what Musashis always do. They mill a climax or a 0 and ping for 1. The floor on the card is absurdly low. However, it is useful in those situations to edge out games, and in my experience playing Love Live Sunshine, aggressive pushes like this in those situations are better than healing. That was when I was playing in the previous meta before things like Fate and stuff came out. My opinions on that have changed slightly, but I don't think I would go down to more than 2. I do value that card in those situations. And those situations do come up, especially in more Swiss environments, which, again, this is a slight modification of what I brought and was planning to bring to NA regional events for that season. 1 Ruby healer, again, like I talked about with the drop search, this is easily uppable to 2. Cut 1 drop search, bump this up to 2. If I was making a change for this deck in general, if I was bringing it to an event for the next year, upcoming year, I would definitely run 1 drop search, 15 zeros, and 2 ruby healers, just because it's more generalized. I am only running 1, like I said, because I want access to specific things on demand to answer specific matchups with my tech cards, which I'm going to get into now. Before I move on, though, the ruby healer also does have plus up to 2k power to another lane on attack, so it can wall bust. That's sort of fringe, but it is a non-insignificant amount of power. So just a sort of cherry on top for the heal, and it's in yellow. These cards are both in yellow. You can always grab them off the brainstorm early if you are hitting brainstorms or brainstorming earlier. Other tech cards at level 3. So I run 1 of the Yoshiko Bouncer. I think this is the best bouncer profile for dealing with defensive level 3 finishers, whether they be Negsol walls or something like Rider. This is a 1-card answer to multiple defensive finishing cards. So hear me out. Say they play double Priestess. You bounce one of their Priestesses, and then immediately on attack, you front in with this, which is gaining additional power, and then pay 1 pitch a card, give your entire board an additional soul. With the Climax, that basically does nothing but make your bet numbers better on attack. So your opponent, by extending into playing their defensive finisher, did nothing but give you optimal numbers to swing in. That's why this profile is so good, and you only need to run 1 of it. So, like, sets that have access to this bouncer profile, which is, I believe, Love Live Sunshine and Fate with the Saber Bouncer, which is weird because Fate is one of the decks that this is good against, is just the best way to deal with multiple defensive finishing cards on 1 card. You only need to run 1. And because I'm running 2 drop searchers, I can just grab this card whenever I need it. I don't need to really hold it even in those matchups. I can grab it when I know I can get it, but I don't have to extend myself to sort of have that extra card in hand, because you don't want to hold extra level 3s in hand in Love Live Sunshine, especially when you're playing a high 0 count. You want to make sure that you are sculpting to maybe hold some additional high value zeros, things like Conan and stuff like that, while making sure, like, if you've triggered zeros early on in the early game, you don't pay those out unnecessarily. You're removing zeros from your next deck and things like that. But yeah, this card is just amazing for dealing with all those forms of defensive finishers. You pop 1 Rider, you have to side, but you pump Soul with the Climax, then you're swinging for 1 or 2, plus your trigger. So just gives you even better numbers when your opponent plays defense. So it just makes them want to not play defense at all. You might not even have to field this. The other one is the Rico Fumio. It's a 1-card Fumio. You rest one of your characters on play. Opponent chooses 1 Climax and leaves it out, and then they shuffle the rest back. So depending on your opponent's deck state, this is either super good or super bad. That's why it's a 1-of. It's a quintessential tech card. This also just gives any one of your lanes infinite power at the cost of your hand. That's even more edge case, but if you have to get over something like Futaba or something stupid, if you can't get the Yoshiko Bouncer into your hand for some reason, I guess it can do that too. We're mainly running this only for the Fumio effect, and in those situations where the Fumio effect wins you the game, it really wins you the game, so it's definitely worth the tech, and you have the space in the list to at least run 1. So the overall list, other than the 3 techs at the top, no 1-ofs, just because I wanted to really value consistency with the list. Again, this is a list that I was planning to bring to events that were Swiss into Top Cut, so having a more consistent list in that sort of environment is very good. The only thing I didn't cover is we are running Empty Door. That's pretty common with Love Live Sunshine lists. Gives you some extra consistency. There's no reason to extend yourself to run additional combos at level 3. They don't really do anything. So we just run the Empty Door to give us some extra selectivity throughout the game. Just tried to clean it as much as possible, optimize it as much as possible. Thoughts on the other Love Live Sunshine lists in the tournament? My sort of shift, because I did used to play blue. I want to note on that before I wrap this up. But after talking with Patrick at Toronto about it, and doing a lot more of my own testing, I've realized that playing blue is just too greedy, and it doesn't noticeably impact the actual ceiling of the deck that much. Based on the way that you play Weiss Schwarz and that you want to compress your next deck as much as possible, compressing your deck will naturally create more whiffs for Yo because it puts the most climaxes, which are whiffs, into your next deck. Level of additional chances for Yo to burn, so like the increase in percent for chances for Yo to burn versus the chances that you brick out and have to pass in the early game because you can't get any zeros, is just like not worth it to me. I would rather have to burn additional cards to set a Yo burn if I absolutely need a Yo burn and I'm not coin flipping for one by just looking at the top card with Rico and then sequencing my attacks in a way where I can possibly get a Yo burn blind. Flip side of that, where when I whiff level 0 and don't have zeros, that is much worse to me, especially in an environment where, again, I was thinking of playing in Swiss. Something like that, you just lose, probably. That can be really bad, especially because other than the Ruby Azusa, you don't have a lot of stockless ways to do anything in the deck. A lot of it is like Drop Searcher, Yo Bomb, Brainstorm, things like that in the early game. So, yeah, just not a fan of the sort of super low zero, like 11 to like 13, because I've tried those lists, and yeah, when they hit, but it's good to not have too much confirmation bias and realize that you want to raise the floor of the deck as much as you can while still keeping the ceiling high, but not getting too obsessed with having a very high ceiling but possibly lowering your floor to a point that you're not actually comfortable with dealing with if that low roll happens. So just always the whole idea behind this list specifically, outside of, again, the one Ruby healer, if I was really, really focused on bringing up my floor as much as I can, definitely one Drop Search to Ruby healer. However, for this sort of more invitational environment, sort of made that switch there to have better access to my tech cards. However, the general idea of this list especially, or any list that runs red and yellow, as I said after talking with Patrick and other people that preach just sort of only the red-yellow list as opposed to mixing blue, is bringing up the floor of the deck to a level where you're not going to brick any more than any other Weiss Schwarz deck. However, because of Chica Yo and it being so ridiculous, the ceiling of your deck is still very, very high without being the sort of ridiculous bricky nature that bringing the blue Maris and other stuff into the list. So yep, that's basically the list. I know that this was sort of more of a rambly video, sort of going in through all of my deck building processes when going through the list, but I think when we're talking about lists that people bring to an invitational environment where it's sort of more directed, it's good to talk about why you brought what you did, what your choices were, why you believe certain cards are stronger than other cards, especially even things like your ratios, things like tech cards, stuff like that. So I really wanted to dig into it. I'm sorry if this was rambling a little long compared to our other more recent deck techs, but I just really wanted to dig into it. I feel very passionately about like my choices in the list, something that I thought would be strong to bring to not only a smaller event, like something like this with an invitational, but also a larger event. But yeah, here's the links we throw at the end of all our videos, the Discords. If you want to talk about Weiss, you want to talk about the meta, you want to talk to the people who are involved with the Weiss Schwarz Invitational project, you want to make sure you're on top of watching the streams and stuff like that, you can go on the Card Games Discord and the competitive Weiss Schwarz Discord. All that information is posted there, as well as I will post it in the description. I will post all the links so you guys can check that out. Make sure you are watching the Weiss Schwarz Invitational games. The commentary has been awesome. The games have been sick. There has been super hype moments. The chats are very fun. It's a really cool thing to be involved in, especially because we don't have a tournament season because of all the stuff with the pandemic. So definitely check that stuff out and join those Discords. You can hop in calls with other people and discuss the matches as they happen in voice chat, as well as talking in the text chat. If you're looking to buy and sell cards, stuff like that, you're looking to tweak your list, definitely check out the Facebook communities. Those are mostly buy-sell trade groups, but the Weiss Schwarz Global community also has reveals for English and JP that are posted with translations and stuff like that, so definitely check those out. And then I also have our Twitters for everybody that is involved with our channel, our recurring cast, quote-unquote. I tweet about Weiss a good bit. I don't know about the other guys, but give me a follow if you want to. We don't have a Twitter for our actual channel, but just wanted to throw those out there. I know that a lot of people really like Twitter and tweet about Weiss, stuff like that. Been a lot more active lately in that vein. All right, I think that's it. Pittsburgh Weiss Schwarz signing off, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And make sure you check out Weiss Schwarz Invitational Games.